is Turn 1 Thoughtseize. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Chris.
And this is episode 31, Pro Tour Draft Discards.
Basically.
Yeah. No, it's, we will obviously be touching on the Eldrazi menace. We will be talking about, what to do, what can you do, what are we going to do. And we'll talk about some questions. There's some products of note coming up, which is nice, and our recent adventures. We went to the biggest SCG regional in the country, and spoiler alert, did very poorly. And yeah, we got some stuff to talk about. So let's get into the Eldrazi menace. Deck's real good.
Oh yeah,
Deck's super good. So I re-listened to our Pro Tour predictions from last episode earlier today, and turns out we were completely wrong.
Yeah, I think this kind of like blew a lot of people. Well, it took a lot of people by surprise, because if you remember, we did talk about like an Eldrazi deck. We talked about the black-based mid-range Eldrazi decks,
Right.
And the ones that did very well at the Pro Tour were actually much more aggressive and a deck that we just hadn't seen. It was almost like the Pro Tour teams just did a very good job of keeping their Pro Tour deck secret or something.
Yeah.
So
Weird.
yeah. Yeah, this deck was on nobody's radar. Eldrazi Mimic showed up nowhere. Endless One did show up, but it wasn't used all the time as just 2/2s on turn 1. It was used as like 5/5s on turn 4. So just the play style and the deck building of these variants, even the blue-red one was playing super aggressive, as well as even Frank Lepore's bug list. While it did go above a lot of the other Eldrazi lists, it was still fairly aggressive.
I think they did. They may have used. Patrick Chapin did a 100% colorless deck earlier in the year that had a lot of the pieces that would end up in the Channel Fireball face-to-face list. He had Hangerback Walkers. Like, it wasn't all Eldrazi. He had Hangerback Walkers.
Right.
He was using Foundry of the consoles. This must be for Standard.
Yes, yeah. There was no real... There weren't a lot of hints exactly at a fully colorless Eldrazi list for the Pro Tour. Or even just, like, the more aggressive stance on the Eldrazi decks.
Yeah. I did say a while ago, I tweeted, I remember it specifically, as soon as I started watching the coverage, and the thing that I posted was, it was in reference to Endless One, but obviously it works with Eldrazi Mimic as well, which is always pay attention to things that you can cast for 0 mana, because they're always really, really, really good.
Yep.
So I think that is going to inform the banning decision that happens in, March?
April. I think we still have a little bit ways to go, because it happens the Monday after pre-release, or the Monday right before the official release of the set. So... Oh, the announcement might actually be the very, very end of March, yeah. It'll be April 4th, I believe, is the next BNR update.
That is my daughter's birthday, and it will be an exceptional birthday present to have probably Ayavugan banned.
I'm sure she will be ecstatic.
She will. Well, we like to play, we play the matching game. With like basic lands, so right. I'll just take the Ayavugans that I normally have in there. I'll just take those out, and I'll put wastes in, probably, just to cover that slot.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the deck stays fine, right?
Yeah. um, yeah, I think the deck will function fine, with just Eldrazi Temple. Um,
Are you actually being are you being sarcastic or?
no. Now I'm being serious. Once Ayavugan gets banned, I think Eldrazi Temple will be fine. Um, you know, I think Tron will end up switching their inevitability win con from uh, some Eldrazi tutored with Ayavugan to some big artifact creature tutored with Fabricate. Be my guess.
Uh, so I actually disagree on like both statements. I don't think the deck's very playable. I don't think the aggro Eldrazi lists stay without Ayavugan, because the power of the deck is the fact that Ayavugan can tap anywhere from 2 to 6 mana in a single turn, and slowing it down to just Eldrazi Temple and being only a 4 of in the deck, like you'd no longer have 8 soul lands in Modern, the deck just doesn't function quite as much. If anything, the deck goes back to more of the black midrange versions, and it's just nowhere near as good, because you can't go... Like, the whole problem with Eldrazi is spitting out 6 power on turn 1, or between turn 1 and 2, for very little effort. It's not like Tron where you have to assemble 3 lands. It's just find your Eye of Ugin and spit out your hand. And when you can't do that anymore, it becomes like you can only play one Eldrazi Mimic off of a temple, where you can play as many as are in your hand off of Eye of Ugin and also throw in an endless one for good measure.
Right, which is why banning Eye of Ugin fixes the problem.
Well, right, no, I agree that banning Ayavugan fixes the problem. I just don't think the deck really functions after it's banned. I don't think there's a...
The turn 2 kill version doesn't work.
Well, like I said, it might go back to the old mid-range versions, the black-based Eldrazi, but even then, it doesn't seem nearly as good. Like, you can go into the black version that was running the 2-mana enchantment that makes like creatures cost 2 less.
Yep. Yeah, Heartless Summoning.
So now you have Heartless Summoning and Eldrazi Temple, and Heartless Summoning kind of acts as your second soul land, but it's much easier to interact with, and it's not quite as reliable. Like, the other problem is lands are just really hard to interact with in Modern, and Ghost Quartering just doesn't... Like, you set yourself 1 land drop back to also set your opponent 1 land drop back, because they're just running wastes.
Right.
So it's tough. Like,
well, yeah, it turns the deck into a deck that doesn't put 6 out of 8 decks into the top 8 of a Pro Tour. Turns it into a normal deck.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it's a normal deck. I think it's tier 3 at best. Like, you just don't do enough. The deck just kind of stops functioning, honestly.
No, I disagree. I think, like, it's no longer going to be a busted, like, format killer, but I think it will still be a playable deck.
It depends how you define playable, once again. Like, because you only have 4, like, the versions that run Expedition Map are just so much worse. Like, if you want to make Eldrazi be a thing with just Eldrazi Temple, you're going to have to put a lot of work into it.
You have to put a lot of work into Tron.
Yes, but the payoffs for Tron are much more game-winning. Like, Thought-Knot Seer is really, really powerful, but when you're casting Thought-Knot Seer after 3 or 4 turns of setup, it's not nearly as powerful, and it's also just not going to win you the game. Whereas Tron on turn 4 is casting Karn or Ugin.
Sure. I mean, like I said, I still think that some version of the deck will be at least tier 2 playable. Well, would you agree with those qualifiers?
No. I don't think it's tier 2 playable. Like, you can certainly sleeve something up and play it, but, like, the the Heartless summoning versions of the deck were never very good. You're taking away half of the lands that tap for more than 1 mana. Like, Modern doesn't have fast mana for a reason. And the reason these cards are powerful is because they're very, very powerful, but they're costed accordingly. And when you take away half of your ability to cheat them into play, quote-unquote, especially once you're taking away all possibility of the aggro start, like, the deck just becomes so beatable, and it's not very good against what replaces it with all of the affinity, infect, and burn. Like, I don't see it. I guess I'd say just in itself, if you were goldfishing the deck, it would be tier 2 playable. I would say that, but when I'm also looking at the bigger picture of what it looks like in the metagame after Eldrazi leaves, and in this hyper-aggressive metagame that also has Tron on the top end, I don't see the deck being able to beat that. So if you took it to a tournament, like a large tournament with lots of people playing tier 1 decks, I don't see it doing very well. If you want to take it to an FNM, yeah, it's probably fine.
Who knows? Who's to say?
I just did.
Yes, you. Well,
thank you.
We've both been wrong before.
That is very true.
2 weeks ago, we were both very wrong.
Yep, quite a bit.
So the other thing that's sort of happening with Eldrazi is it is real popular in Magic Online.
Man, not just popular, it's just doing so well. Like, the popularity is even... Like, you can see Eldrazi just go into a tournament and only, like, 8 people playing it, and then suddenly, like, all 8 copies are in, like, the top 32 or something. Like, yeah. It's ridiculous. It's showing up a lot in the dailies and the leagues. In one of the recent dailies, like, the only deck that went 4-0 was Eldrazi, even though there was only, like, 1 or 2 copies in the whole event.
Yeah. No, it is definitely busted. You know, you had, I guess, looked up the performance of some old decks that were like as good or better.
Yeah, so in Modern's beginnings, like Modern Elf Ball, some of the versions even just ran, like when Glimpse of Nature was still legal in the format, that also put 6 decks into the top 8 of a PT. And that deck was very busted, and they banned it. It didn't quite... And the weird thing was, it didn't quite even have the numbers after the PT that Eldrazi has. Which was also, like, the bigger thing. And then some other decks, too. Like, Storm was a big deal. Blazing Shoal Infect was a problem.
Ooh.
All of these decks were so broken, and it was so clear, and they didn't put up the numbers Eldrazi is putting up.
Yeah.
Like, especially on Magic Online, this just is the most... I don't know the right word. I kind of want to say oppressive, but that almost just sounds biased. It's the most dominating statistically of any Magic Online Modern deck ever.
Yeah. Yep. So what if they ban Temple and not Eye?
I think that's just a mistake. I think Wizards just isn't in a position where they can take risks like that. Because I also thought about, well, what if they just ban Mimic and Endless One? Because that would also be interesting.
That doesn't make any sense, though.
But, right, that's the thing. Like, you need to ban the enablers, and I think Wizards has learned that over time. If you ban the biggest offender of the enablers, it doesn't matter what you print after the fact. Because what happens if we go back to some Eldrazi plotline 5 years from now, and they didn't ban Eldrazi, Eye of Ugin, and suddenly it's just broken again because they banned the payoff cards and not the enablers? Like, that isn't the biggest likelihood, but it's still a likelihood, and they've just learned that over time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I guess I'm ready to swallow Ancient Tomb in Modern. I'm not ready to swallow Mishra's Workshop. So, yeah,
it's even better than Mishra's Workshop sometimes. Like, it's borderline like Talara's Academy. Like, it doesn't even really have an equivalent, because the drawback of how much mana you can tap Eye of Ugin for is the quality of the hand.
Right.
So like it also rewards uninteractive gameplay and just heavy mulligan decisions.
Yeah.
Like you just want to mulligan into eye and 3 mimics.
Mm. Yeah, you do. Um, so I think we can say that with 99% of surety that Ibugen will not survive the next banning. Um, if for no other reason than aside from the numbers, that it is pushing people to not play,
Yeah.
and that is the real coffin nail for anything. If you look back at um, Skull Clamp, you look back at Cawblade, Cawblade Standard, Jace the Mind Sculptor, like all that kind of stuff that just drove people out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
That is the stuff that it comes down on. And if this if this was a like a turn one kill, then it would be emergency banned, but it's not. So it's just going to be regular banned. I think there's only really been one like major emergency ban, and it was an old standard turn one kill.
Yeah, memory jar.
Yeah. So
Because people were like leaving the game in droves. Yeah.
So things like that actually affect their bottom line and the bottom line of the people that they rely on, like tournament organizers. If it goes from the regional that we went to, 604 players, biggest one in the country, to the next modern event that normally gets, say, 200 people, and 40 people show up because the other 160 don't want to play Eldrazi all day.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, if the PT happened, let's say like a week before regionals for some odd reason, there would not have been 604 people at that convention center.
Right.
Like people just wouldn't have come. There's actually Willie Edel, who I am a fan of, and who is actually one of the prominent pro players that actually enjoys Modern. If you enjoy Green Black X midrange, you should definitely read a lot of his articles. He's very good at that. And he even tweeted something like that a little over an hour ago, saying like he didn't know any other pro that played more Modern than him in the last 4 years, but in the last 2 weeks he's probably played 3 matches just because of how bad it became. So these are also just professional players who have a lot of public, like he's a big icon in the Magic community, and he's saying these types of things, and so are a lot of other professional players too, and so Wizards is kind of forced into listening.
Yeah.
Like I think from a business standpoint, for the reasons that you said, because pro players are talking out about it, which makes other players just hear what they're saying and more aware, it's just not going to end well if they don't do something.
Yeah. So that's people, when people vote with their pocketbook, companies listen. That is really and truly the only thing that gets results. So use that information as you will. So some people are trying to not have to buy in to the deck if they didn't already have all the stuff, because the solution is just play the deck. If you want to go somewhere and have your best chance at cashing, guess what? It's blue-red Eldrazi.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. If anyone was planning on going to a Modern GP, I think blue-red Eldrazi is probably your best bet. If not, maybe something like Frank Lepore's list. And one of my new favorites that has popped up recently, the red-green Eldrazi lists look really promising. That gets around like Ancient Stirrings.
Right.
And World Breaker as their like big thing, because now not only do you want to be an aggressive Eldrazi deck, you want to go over the top of the other Eldrazi decks to beat the mirror match.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean it's
It's,
like I said, if you're already bought into the deck, if you bought into the deck when it was cheap, or you just had the cards already, then you know sleeve it up. I mean, if you've already got Ayavugan from like Modern Masters drafting or whatever, um, then great. Like you have the expensive parts. Um, Other than that, go draft some BFZ, and you probably will be able to get the rest of it pretty easily. um, Other people are like, I can beat them. All I have to do is play Infect, or play Affinity, or play Burn. And one of those three answers is almost correct, which is Affinity. I think you need to be on the cranial plating ink moth plan for that
right.
to work. Um, I think there's actually, and I completely speculative here. I think that of the infect lists that are out there, I think the black green with like the Vault Scourges and or not Vault Scourge, Plague Stinger, like the evasive, like having a high number of evasive infect creatures is probably your best bet.
Did they have more? Didn't they just have Plague Stinger, which is the same as Blue Green's Blighted Agent?
I thought there was
Because the
something
rest was all like
else.
pro white, pro red stuff, right? Like the Crusader. I didn't think they had any more evasive stuff. I thought it was just Plague Stinger and Inkmoth Nexus, which both decks share.
Let's see what we got here. Glistener Elf, Noble Heart, Plague Stinger, Verdean Corruptor. Main deck Verdean Corruptor is actually not bad. Oh, okay. So they have Grizzly Salvage, uh, which kind of makes their mulligans easier. That's one of the
I
things with
guess.
Blue Green Infect. Like you're kind of stuck with whatever you have.
Yeah, but against Eldrazi, that's just kind of what you have to do. I think that's just kind of what the point. I know Owen Turnwald was complaining about that in the format a lot. Like, right now, the format's just so fast, you don't have time to draw out of a bad hand, you just need to mull.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So I guess it is Plague Stinger. I wonder if there's.
But either way,
Anyways.
Infect is kind of hit or miss against Eldrazi. Your best bet really is Inkmoth Nexus or Blighted Agent or Plague Stinger if you're in green black,
Yeah.
and just hope you have a really fast kill. Because most of the time Eldrazi is not going to kill you really quickly. It's just a deck that's very hard to interact with. So your best bet to beat them without sacrificing anything from your main deck is to just be as fast and as consistent, and that's a very tall order. It's not impossible, but if you play Infect or you play Affinity and you get good draws and good hands, you do have a chance to do well in a tournament filled with Eldrazi decks.
Yeah. I think that's actually. Well, there's a 4 mana flyer, but that's not really.
I think the lists are pretty well tuned for the green black and blue green. I think the blue green's a little bit faster right now. Like, I like the green black list because it's interactive, but I feel like your best bet is to just be not interactive right now.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate.
I'm not thrilled about it.
Yeah. So the oh man, we play black green Skitterthrix, the Blight Dragon ramp. Get the game over real quick. Man, he's only
Skittles?
yeah.
I,
Skitterix.
I don't know the name. Everyone I know just calls them Skittles.
Okay. Well, Skitterix, the Blight Dragon. It's 5 mana, 4/4 flying with infect, and you can give him haste, and you can regenerate him.
Yep.
So there you go. Boom. Probably not.
Jeez.
Okay. Probably not a.
Not if you're trying to win
It's
quickly.
not a. It's not a boom. I don't know. I mean, how fast can you ramp into something that's 5 mana though? Like you could get there.
Not if you want to give him haste. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So that's a bad idea. It's a neat card though. Um.
Yeah.
Oh, you could. Oh, you could do. You could Goryo's Vengeance him, and then pump him. Like that could work. That's probably better than Grishelbrand against Eldrazi.
I don't know. Grishelbrand's pretty good.
Is it though? I mean,
I mean, like it's another deck that can win very very quickly. It also like it's one of the decks that just if they have Thought Knot Seer on turn 2, you're not probably not winning. But if they don't, you might win on turn 3 or 4.
yeah, I
Like
guess. Yeah, if they
I
have,
feel like it's consistent enough to win on turn 3 and 4 if they don't have one or two Thought Knot Seers, and you do still have the top of your deck. I think it's similar to Infect and Affinity, where it's a deck where if you just get a little lucky and you run well, you could take down a tournament filled with Eldrazi.
yeah, it's just so soft to graveyard hate, and there's so much of it. Like, I, I think they would have a tough time. Um,
That's the other weird thing. How much graveyard hate is there in the format right now?
I mean, just in the Eldrazi decks. Oh well, that's you know what? Actually, the thing that really kills the Grizzlebrand deck is Chalice on 2.
I was thinking you were going to say Pithing Needle.
Well, I mean that too, but if you're up against the colorless version, they're running 4 main deck Chalice of the Void.
Mm.
They're gonna get Chalice on 2, and you're gonna lose the game.
I mean, Chalice on 1 helps too.
Oh yeah, no,
Just because of Faithless
I mean,
Loading. I think Chalice on 1's borderline.
it's all good.
Yeah.
We talked about Chalice of the Void a while ago. We were like, man, we haven't seen this in a while. It's a real good card.
It sure
It
is.
sure is. And now it's
Man.
like $50. So if you didn't have them before, just
Well, I mean, you were talking about that too, and we mentioned it on. I think I mentioned it on a thread on Twitter. Like, Chalice of the Void plus the aggro Eldrazi core in Legacy with Ancient Tomb just seems sweet.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's already started putting up results.
Yeah, like, it's just very good. You get to run Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide. The list I was testing out ran Thorn of Amethyst, and Trinisphere doesn't work
Right.
because Trinisphere actually shuts off Euro deck a lot. It doesn't interact well with Ayavugan, but Sphere of Resistance, it doesn't matter if your Eldrazi costs 1 more. Like, you're casting 5 drops in Legacy. Like, if you're doing that, you don't care about the 6th mana.
Right. So the consensus, well, the consensus of 2, so I would say we have a quorum. Our response to the Eldrazi nonsense is you basically just you can play whatever you want.
Yeah, I think this is actually like a really exciting time.
Yeah, like if you're probably not going to win playing like a $4,000 Jund deck, go out and put together a $100. Actually, it's not $100. I was going to say $100 Mythic Conscription deck, but it's a lot more expensive than that. You have likely enough cards to put together a different deck that is probably slightly less competitive but much more fun than the deck that you would normally play. And this is a good time to do that. So I really I was like, man, I'm gonna dust off that old Mythic Conscription deck because Geist of St. Trapp's so cheap now.
Yeah.
When the dual deck comes out.
Yeah, right now is just like a really good time to brew around with some silly cards and have some fun. I mean, because the thing is, a lot of people are trying to currently brew decks just to beat Eldrazi because the logic is, wow, if this is actually 40% of the metagame at the top of the metagame, I should just brew a deck against Eldrazi and I'll just win all of that. But even if you're right and that works, that's still only 40%. You're not taking down a tournament with it.
Right.
You also have to be good against the rest of the metagame. And the crossover between good against Eldrazi and good against the rest of the metagame, it just doesn't work out well. And even a lot of the decks that seem like they should be incredibly well positioned on paper, it just doesn't work out. Like, I think I mentioned this to you. The second place deck in the modern PTQ on Magic Online, it was blue-white control with like 4 main deck Ghost Quarters.
Yep.
And a full 4 Supreme Verdicts in the 75. I think
they were
Only two
main
or
deck.
three.
No, they were.
I thought the fourth was in the sideboard.
I
But even so, it's such a small change. Like, I know there were at least 3 Supreme Verdicts in the main.
Yeah.
Like, we know we can. That's also just insane. Like, you're running all of these Wraths, 4 Ghost Quarters, and I think there was more Land Hate, too, in addition to Detention Sphere.
Yeah, it was. Well, they were running. I looked at it earlier today. They were running, I think, 4 Supreme Verdict and 4 Spreading Seas.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like.
And what did they lose to in the finals? Eldrazi.
Yep.
Like, the deck that just should beat Eldrazi every time couldn't. And people are still brewing these decks, and it's just like, you can. That is a thing that you can do.
Right.
But I'd rather play something more fun and something... Oh, yeah, you're right. 4 Supreme Verdicts main deck, 4 Spreading Seas main deck, 2 Detention Spheres, 2 Gideon Jura, an Elspeth, which is really good at cleaning up after Eldrazi,
Right.
Sun Titan to get some of these permanents back if they can deal with them, 4 Ghost Quarters. Like, I just...
Yeah.
This deck was made for beating some things, especially Eldrazi, and it just didn't quite get there. Congrats to that player, though. Magic Online username I Walk Alone. You don't. There are a lot of people that really want to rally behind this list, because it does look sweet, too. Like, this deck is doing a lot of really cool things. Wall of Omens, Flicker Wisp, Kitchen Finks, Sun Titan,
Yeah.
Condemn, Oust.
Yeah.
Like, it's effectively running 6 Path to Exiles. Like, I'm good with this. Like, this list, this is also one that's, like, it's brewed to beat Eldrazi, but it also looks kind of fun. I think you can just take it completely on the fun side of it, though.
Yeah. I mean, you can, like, yeah, you can just do it. So, what are your fun decks? I'm going
Right now?
Yes, I'm going out of order. Sorry.
That's fine. We can touch on our recent adventures later. It's all good. So
They weren't very notable. Like, let's be real.
We can just bang those out then, since it's pretty boring. So yeah, 604 players, SCG Regionals in Providence, 10 rounds. You needed to go X1-1 in top 8. Like, it was ridiculous. The math worked out so that if everything went perfectly and a bunch of people didn't draw, one X2 made top 8. Like,
Yeah.
It was just a very frustrating tournament to play in. It was run by TJ Collectibles, which means we knew from the start that even if there were 604 people and they oversold the event twice, there was going to be no extended prize support for people. It was just the SCG advertised price.
Right.
Which is just a glorified 5K, by the way. Like, it's a 5K with Star City Games open points.
Yes.
So it was just a miserable event for a player. I went 2-2 drop. I played Jeskai Control with 4 Snapcaster Mages. Like, it was a deck that I expected to do very well against aggro decks. It expect to do reasonably okay against Eldrazi, and a deck that I tuned the sideboard for Tron. My downfall was I didn't tune the sideboard for control mirror matches, and that's what I played twice. The deck did fantastically when I played against the decks I expected to see, and I didn't have enough to spell. I didn't have enough card advantage cards. Like, a lot of my stuff was more, I have all of this removal, I have life gain, I have wraths, I'm going to live until turn 7, and then my cards are just going to win the game, like with a Johnny Vengeance, Gideon Jura, all that stuff. And the deck was really fun to play. Like, I didn't actually have any bad rounds. I had fun all 4 rounds that I played, but after 4 rounds and the 2-2 record, and knowing I couldn't top 8, I was just ready to leave. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, it wasn't worth playing 6 more rounds that if I go 6-0, I'll get either $50 or $100.
Right.
After, like, a $40 entry fee. It just wasn't worth anyone's time.
Yes. So I went won three because I wanted to play. Well, two things. One, I forgot to drop, and two, um, we both ended up playing in the Dream Crusher bracket. Um, I beat up some Merfolk deck was my win, but I went um, first round was Eldrazi, and I just like I can't hang, like
Hmm.
smallpox between I didn't have any like real like super duper nut hands. Like I probably could have mulliganed better in a couple of the games. Um, but even just like smallpox with the flagstones out was not good enough. And then lingering souls was fine against them, but not great. It's just like the value that I extract from lingering souls and getting four bodies out of one card is not equivalent to them just spitting out value all over the place. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
so they were either really fast or like kind of turn six, turn seven. Where I was like, all right, deal with your threat, deal with your threat, deal with your threat. Oh, you found your Ulamog. I'm dead.
Right.
Um, so that was that. I had a couple of fairly colossal misplays. Um, my biggest misplay was in round two because I didn't sleep the night before. I went to bed at 3. I got up super late. Um, I changed my deck list a bunch at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like what this list should be for those listening is things not to do. So sleep the night before. Don't change your deck list at 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, don't put your phone on mute by accident because you're setting the alarm at 3 o'clock in the morning. And um, make sure that you actually have the cards that you were originally going to register. So I made all four of those mistakes, which contributed greatly um, to the following mistake that I made, which was I had Oath of Gideon out, and then I played Elspeth Terrell, and I was like, all right, this is where I bring it back. Because I had like a bitter blossom in my hand, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna blow up the world, throw down this bitter blossom, and then just grind them out. Um, so I play the Elspeth Terrell, I blow up the world, and then I remember that her ultimate is destroy, not exile. So I end up with a bunch of like soldier and lingering souls tokens, and the other person ends up with their Ulamog, and that was an issue. Turns out,
Yeah. A little bit.
yeah. It was really satisfying though to be able to just like cast her an ultimate though. So I'm
Yeah, sweet.
yeah, it was neat. And then so round one was like Eldrazi blowout. Round two was Eldrazi blowout featuring epic misplay. Um, round three was
Oh, I really enjoyed this. I finished up my round three super quick because it was against Infect, which, like I said, when I was up against the matchups I was prepared for, they were basically buys. The deck's fantastic. I'll have to post the list. So I finished up early and got to come over and sit next to you for this round,
yeah, and we were
and
already
he was playing such a cool
yeah
deck.
like locked in Mortal Kombat with a guy who was playing green white Enchantress with Starfield of Nyx. It was basically like green white Pillow Fort Prison.
Yeah, he also had Sigil of the Empty Throne.
Yep.
He was sitting on mostly godless, ghostly prison, and he later had sphere of resistance, but it was also like on a courser to draw courser and
Eidolon.
Eidolon of Blossoms
Yeah.
as like an engine.
So I was able to. I beat him game one, and then game two, he like sort of got the whole thing going before I could, sort of get in there. And like I was able to fight through one ghostly prison. I was not able to fight through three ghostly prisons. And so I was like basically attacking pink 6 mana to attack with a single spirit token every turn. And my only possible out to this was the Eidolon of Blossoms draw trigger is mandatory. It is not a May ability. So
Right.
there were that game and game three, he was within like 12 cards of decking himself because he was drawing so many cards. And I was really hoping for that.
Did you still have Oath of Gideon and Elspeth Tirel game 2 and 3? Was
Um,
that like an out you could draw to?
yeah, I mean it was possible.
Well,
Um,
because that does it too, right? Because he was running the card that gives all of your enchantments shroud or
yes,
hexproof.
yep. No,
Um,
it's Shroud. Ugh, it's
okay,
the worst.
yeah. So he was running that, so you couldn't even like
Yep.
destroy any permanent. So I guess Elspeth Tirel kind of would dig you out, right?
Yeah, that was basically that was my only out. Um, was her, and I mean I had two wraths in the board, but I mean it's hard.
Yeah.
So
Oh man, when he landed the second one, so everything just couldn't be targeted
yeah,
ever.
I was like, all right, well that's cool. I mean, like I said, we'll keep playing because he may deck himself, and like I can dirtle like crazy.
Man,
I had a
I mean,
bitter blossom out, lingering souls. I can spit out tokens like crazy, and block all of his stuff, but you know, eventually it's just too much. Um, and yeah, and then in the Dream Crusher bracket, I played against Merfolk, very nice young lady, and against a deck like that, you know, it's very hard for them to deal with smallpox because it's like all the things that they hate, like killing their creatures and blowing up their lands and making them discard, is tough. Especially if you can like chain them together. If you have you know smallpox with a flagstones out, and then you play another flagstones smallpox again, like
yeah.
it's tough. So I won that one. It was my single win of the day. I have since made some changes to the deck.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So we have talked about your black white smallpox list before, and for those who have asked, because a lot of people have asked, it's on our tapped out page,
Yes.
which we will link to and talk about later. But you mentioned making changes, and you've kind of alluded to it with Oath of Gideon and stuff. What was the different plan with this black white smallpox list?
Uh, so the thing that I really found, or that I started to find, was that the the really the best way that I had to like close out the game was with big planeswalkers. And so I was like, all right, how do I maximize my planeswalker payoff, basically. Um, so what I ended up doing, I had the list that I registered for that event had one Elspeth Tirel and three Soren Solemn Visitor, along with three Oath of Gideon, and an Elspeth Sun's Champion out of the side. The most recent list that I have is running one Gideon Ally of Zendikar, two Soren Solemn Visitor, an Elspeth Tirel, and an Ob Nixilis Reignited, with four Oath of Gideons. It still runs the tokens package. It's a little bit different. It's obviously four Lingering Souls, four Raise the Alarm, four Intangible Virtue, and I put in four Hangerback Walkers because they're just really good. Having a single Intangible Virtue out with a Hangerback Walker, it's not only is it a must answer because you can just ratchet it up every turn if they don't have something to kill it, and then if the thing that they have to kill it isn't a path, it dies. They have to kill it in combat, lose cards that way, and you get value out of it, and a lot of value, two flyers, 3/3 flyers, and that's a big deal against a lot of decks. Just not Eldrazi. So the Ob Nixilis Reignited is a test. He may end up just becoming a second Gideon Ally of Zendikar. But we'll see what happens. So this version gives up the Smallpox and cuts the Bitter Blossoms to make room for all that other stuff. I could run those things out of the side. I wanted to just rewind a little bit and speak to the sort of the resilience of the Eldrazi deck, even against hate. There was a game where in round 2, the guy had Temple, Eye of Ugin, Urborg, and I had something with flagstones. So I Smallpox. He sacks his Eye of Ugin, and then I extirpate Eye of Ugin. I took the one out of his hand, and then the other two from his deck, and I still lost that game. That's huge. If I'm playing against Tron and I extirpate one of the Tron pieces, their life gets a lot harder.
Right. It's not impossible for them to win if they're Tron, but it's with Eldrazi, you can still be casting multiple must deal with threats a turn.
Yeah. So I was just like, all right, well, this is the world now. So I didn't get to really test my sideboard plan against any of the decks that I sideboarded for. I had a Blood Baron, 2 Doomblades, Elspeth Sun's Champion, 3 Extirpate, 3 Rest for the Weary, 3 Stony Silence, and 2 Wraths. And I did not face any decks against which any of those things, except I brought in the Doomblades and the Extirpates and the Wraths, I think, for Eldrazi, and it was not enough. So there you go. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Also, Scry Temples in a control deck are real good. I registered Temple of Silence, and it certainly performed its function.
Yeah, they're not bad. Just a quick comment on the Scry Temples. They're not bad. It's just that most decks normally have something better, and in black-white, you're in a unique position where you don't really I don't think I like Shambling Vents more than Temple of Silence.
Mm,
but I probably do like Celestial Colonnade better than the blue-white Scryland.
yeah. Yep.
Or something in more of like a Jund control list, I'd rather play Raging Ravine than one of the Jund colored Scryland
Right.
options.
Yeah, it's because my other option is like Mistvale Plains I could probably run.
Eh,
But it's yeah, it's like I don't really have any creatures that I could bring back. At least in this version, I didn't. I suppose I could use because you can get Mistvale Plains off of flagstones. So I
yeah.
suppose in theory I could tap flagstones, float a white. Oh no, Mistvale Plains comes into play tapped. So never mind. La di da.
Well, Flagstone makes the land come into play tapped anyway.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
That's how they
yeah,
get you.
no, in black white, I feel like Temple of Silence is fine, especially if you're not on a third color.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
If I was gonna keep sort of pushing this in Eldrazi world, I probably would switch to Mardu
Mm.
because it would give me Crackling Doom, it would give me Painful Truths, Lightning Helix, like just give me a lot of stuff. Even something silly like Crack the Earth against you know post Wrath. Like if I can go whatever turn 4 Wrath your board, turn 5 Crack the Earth, it's going to put them a lot more behind than it's going to put me.
Sure.
So I don't know, maybe I'll play Restore Balance and play a Shade of Trocaire. I bought a set of those on Magic Online. It was pretty funny. I actually did win a game with Shade of Trocaire beats, but Nantuko Shade turns out is not actually, because like he's a white Nantuko Shade.
Right.
In most situations, not great, but interesting. It's a neat card.
Yeah. It also is a pretty good segue into the next topic of you mentioned if you were going forward playing black white, you'd probably switch it to Mardu.
Yes.
What else is on your radar to play right now?
Um, I mean, I'm not.
Going back to our
Yes.
play some fun things
Yeah.
topic that we meant to cover.
I mean, I'm still. I'm not gonna play. My whatever black white mid range thing.
Right.
I am gonna use that core and build black white martyr proc.
Mm.
Um, I was looking at it today, and it literally required like $10 worth of cards. Um,
Yeah.
and that's only because I wanted to run Eiley Pilgrim, what's her face from Oath.
Yeah, which by the way is a sweet card, and it's still not that
No,
expensive.
I think they were $1. um, and I also a I want to try the Felidar Sovereign win. Like if I can pull that off, that'll make me really happy.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the 2 mana 1 and a white-black hybrid from Shadowmoor that like turns into a 4/4 flyer when you cast a white and black
Oh
spell.
man, you mean my very first modern deck that I built?
Oh, was that really?
Yeah, yeah. Night
Man.
Sky Mimic with it
Okay,
was
yeah,
it
that's it.
was
Night Sky Mimic.
entirely black white, and it was Night Sky Mimic, um, High Priest of Penance, I think Underworld Coinsmith. Um,
There are just so many good options that you want to play anyway. Like
yeah,
you already mentioned Eiley, High Priest of Penance, Night Sky Mimic itself, Tide Hollow Sculler. There are options like Athreos and Teysa or Zav Scion are also fairly good in these style
yeah.
decks. Like
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of things. The serious version of it though is something like, you know, Martyr Sands, Islay Eternal Pilgrim, High Priest of Penance, Squadron Hawk, Tide Hollow
Mm-hmm.
Sculler. I'm gonna try Flip Liliana. Um,
I don't know if you want. I personally wouldn't run it because I don't want to waste that much on a non-white card. First of all, for Martyr of Sands, and I feel like an additional source of life gain is more important as well. Like I would probably still run Soul's Attendant in the deck,
hmm,
or I think Soul's Attendant is just like 25 cents cheaper on Magic Online, and that's the reason why I was looking at it. But the other Soul Sister,
Soul Warden.
yes,
Um, so, and then Blood Baron, because this is a deck where I could actually turn him on.
that's true.
And,
Yeah.
you know, because his requirement is only that you have 30 or more life and your opponent has 10 or less life, and then he becomes a 10/10 flying lifelink pro white, pro black. um, and then Path, Orzhov Charm, a rarely used charm for a number of reasons, mainly that it has extremely niche applications. Um, it has one extremely important mode and two semi-relevant modes. Um, the main thing that it does in this deck is the last option is return target creature card with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you
Mm.
can instant speed reanimate Martyr Sands, um, and then sack her again. Same thing with Rally the Ancestors. Um, I have a Return to the Ranks in there right now, just as like a fifth Rally the Ancestors, even though it's differently good.
Yeah, no, I actually like Return to the Ranks better in this particular deck because it lets you, like, you don't have to instant speed rally to do something like block with High Priest of Penance, for
Yeah,
example. Which is a card that I really like, and I do like the instant speed, bringing it into play to block with it, but sometimes just putting it in play is just really good, and they have to have a non-damage source to kill it. Like a lot of decks go up against High Priest of Penance, and they're just like, all I have is lightning
right.
bolts. What do I do? So
Yeah, that's why I was gonna put Edge of the Divinity in the deck, which is a 1 mana enchantment that if a creature's black, it gets +2/+1, and if it's white, it gets +1/+2. So if it's both, it's a +3/+3 aura for 1 mana, and so putting something like that on a High Priest of Penance is just, it gives you more of a clock because they're
right,
already disincentivized to block it, so they have to either block it and blow up a bunch of permanents or just let it kill them. So I ended up switching that out for a sword. Um, the one I have sort of Feast and Famine in the list right now just because it's the only one that I own. Um, I mean, it probably should be War and Peace.
maybe I do like untapping lands with this deck
Yeah,
though.
no, I do too. I think, like I said, if for no other reason than I already own it, it'll probably.
Which one's the sword? Isn't there a sword that lets you return a creature from your graveyard to your hand?
Let's
Is it Light
see,
and Shadow?
probably. Um,
Sword of Light and Shadow for white and black. Creature deals damage to a player. You gain 3 life, and you may return up to one target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I like that one in this deck the most,
mm,
especially if you put it on High Priest of Penance, because then, like, if it has protection from black and white, they are forced to basically kill it with damage,
right.
as well as Sword of Light and Shadow, both gaining you life and getting back uh, Martyr of Sands. In this case, for if I were running the list, Soul's Attendant, High Priest of Penance again, and you just get to loop stuff. So I really like that sword in this
Mm.
deck.
Um, the other thing too is, you know, Eiley as a creature is like pretty good. Like white black for 2/3 death touch, who's also a sack outlet that gains you life, is good. In this deck, having a conditional repeating Vindicate is bananas. Like the fact that she has as an ability, uh, one white black, sacrifice another creature, exile target non-land permanent, and its only stipulation is that you have to have 10 more life than your starting total. So if you're at 30 life, which you can do on turn one with this deck,
Right.
you just put her down. If they don't kill her, you just start blowing everything up.
Yeah, especially with things like Squadron Hawk that just let you get more and more.
Well, and even like you can do the Tide Hollow Sculler shuffle with her. So you cast Tide Hollow Sculler, you exile their card, and then with the second trigger on the stack, you blow him up, and then
Right.
their card just goes away. Like that's terrible and awesome.
Oh yeah, and you get to curve out like that too. Like if you play, that's one of the reasons why like Soul's Attendant or Soul Warden in this deck, like having that. If you don't have a good Martyr of Sands hand, or Martyr of Sands just isn't in your opener, and you go like Soul's Attendant into Eiley into turn 3 Sculler with a mana to sack Eiley with the trigger on the stack, you're now just gaining life. You've gained 4 life at this point, have a 2/3 Death Toucher with lifelink, and you just got to exile a card from their hand.
Right.
Like, and it's not in the easiest board state to deal with, and when they do deal with it, you have Rally and Return to the Ranks, just so that they have to deal with it again.
Yeah. Um, so I really, really, really think this deck is going to be a lot of fun, and potentially could get me some wins.
Yeah,
So
and one of my favorite parts about it is that we both would refer to this as like Black White Martyr proc, but Proclamation of Rebirth just isn't good enough for the deck anymore.
yeah, if Rally didn't exist,
Or
or
Return to the
Return to the
Ranks. I think
Ranks,
Return's better too.
yeah, no, it certainly is, but I'm not against running like Proclamation of Rebirth in it, but yeah, for 3 mana at instant speed, I can do the exact same thing.
Or the same, because Proclamation of Rebirth is 3 mana or 4 mana.
It's 3. You can forecast it for 6.
Oh yeah, but even so, like being able to pay the 4th mana instant speed for Rally and also get back Tide Hollow Scullers and High Priest of Penances and Squadron Hawks and just everything else in addition to the Martyr of Sands and
Yeah,
Souls Attendant and stuff, just really good. Especially when you have like 2 Souls Attendants in the yard and other creatures and they all just see each other come in.
yeah. Now there's some other stuff too that I even considered that's like more fringe. Um, there's an uncommon from battle, Malakir Familiar, 2 and a black, for 2 white flying death touch, and whenever you gain life, Malakir Familiar gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Like that's something. I do. I'm really tempted to try Pull from Eternity out of the side. Yeah, bringing that, but
I'm not familiar.
oh, no one's familiar. So this is an uncommon from Time Spiral. It is single white for an instant. Put target face-up card that's removed from the game into its owner's library, or into its owner's graveyard. So you basically can do like triple duty from your anything that gets exiled. So like
Oh, sure. I got you.
you can rally and then you can pull from eternity back the things that got exiled and do it again. It's
Right.
it's kind of win more. Okay, it's super duper win more. Um, but it does have some like interesting side applications. Like you can snag somebody's rift bolt, you can get stuff back that has been like exiled with like Ulamog, whatever blows up your stuff, you can get it back if they're blowing up creatures. There's something there. Uh, kind of. There's something there in my head. I don't know if there's something there in real life.
Well, regardless, there's still the point of there's so much play to this deck and so many options out there. You're bound to find something fun.
Yeah. The other stuff that I was looking at, like I've had that Mythic Inscription deck that we've talked about before kicking around. The only thing that I don't have for it, which is like the thing that it really needs to like beat Eldrazi, which is Inkmoth Nexus, um,
Mm,
because it's just oops I win. You throw Eldrazi Conscription on Inkmoth Nexus and then you win the game. Um, and they are still pretty pricey. So I'm not necessarily going to jump into $150 for a set of Inkmoth Nexus right now. Um, the other thing is the Nightfall combo. Another like if you're gonna beat the Eldrazi, having an Oops I Win combo is probably one of the better ways to do it. And Nightfall, I have every single card for that deck already. I just never like put it together. So I do love me some Bant. So I don't know. That could be something that I sleeve up as well.
it's a sweet list. Like, I enjoy that kind of is a thing. I remember it, like, Night of the Reliquary spiked hard
Oh yeah,
when people found out that it was a combo. And it's neat. Like, I definitely like it. Um, I'm not sure how... Like, it didn't end up being super competitive, which is fine. I mean, who knows what happens when Eldrazi goes away and we get to explore the post-twin metagame.
right.
But I mean, like we said, this is the perfect time to play something that you just find really fun.
Yeah, man. I did not look at the top eight for that regional that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
It's Blue Moon, Affinity, Colorless Eldrazi, Jeskai Ascendancy, Ad Nauseum, Esper Control, Burn, and Affinity was the top eight.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it was. So just a quick tangent on that. People did delve into the SCG regional results for all across all of them, and Affinity was the top deck. Eldrazi also was the second or third or something, which was very surprising considering
It happened the
it
same day
it,
as the Pro Tour.
it happened right. Well, the day after, like the deck came out on Friday, and then Saturday it was a thing, and it was Affinity and Eldrazi. If you lump together colorless blue red and the mid-range types, if you do lump the Eldrazi decks together, it was the only deck besides Affinity that had a double-digit metagame percentage.
Mm,
Being the fact that none of these people really tested the aggressive Eldrazi deck before. They just saw it do well in the Pro Tour, sleeved it up the night before a tournament, and did well with
right.
it. Which is just kind of like a huge testament to how broken the deck is. So that was that. The winner for our regional, which was in Providence, was actually Blue Moon,
Yep.
which, I mean, obviously it doesn't seem... It's certainly not bad against Eldrazi. It played, I think, like 3 Pia and Kieran Nalars, one Vendilion Click, and four Snapcaster Mages, if I'm remembering
Yep.
correctly. So, I mean, it had a fair amount of threats. It had the main deck Blood Moons. It might have had more land destruction in the board. Because it was only blue-red, I think it might have... It gets the flexibility to run things like Ghost Quarters. I don't know if it had a main deck because of Blood Moon,
No.
but
No. It did have
yeah.
main deck Batterskull and
Yes.
main deck Vidalcan Shackles, which seems real good, actually.
Well, in Blue Moon, that was actually fairly normal. It's kind of weird. The Blue Moon list actually looked kind of stock, quote unquote, but no one's really played Blue Moon in such a long time
Right.
that people just really didn't remember how to play against it either. And it was fairly good against the rest of the metagame. Like, you get to run a lot of damage-based wraths and really efficient removal, and Blood Moon does shut out so many decks in the metagame, even without Eldrazi. The deck certainly wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Like, it was a good choice for the tournament.
Yeah. I really like this Esper control list. That is something that I would totally look at if I had more of the cards. I just don't have them.
I have not seen it.
It's Gourmet, one Angler, one Tassiger, and then full sets of Monastery Mentor, Flip Jace, and Snapcaster. Um, and then just removal, and then four paths: Thought Scour, Inquisition, Lingering Souls, Serum Visions. 22 lands, a lot of fetches, obviously, and then Painful Truth out of the side, Zealous Persecution. Like, just has a lot of good stuff. Timely Reinforcements, Thoughtseize. Like, it has a lot of cards that I like, along with a lot of blue cards that are better than most of the other cards that I normally play with those cards.
I need to see this list because that sounds very
Awesome.
similar to a list a friend of ours played at the event.
Yeah. Eddie Samuels came in sixth with it. I will send it to you.
I kind of I don't know. It's like a petty difference, but I don't know if I agree with the Gurmag Angler.
Sure.
I found it on MTG Goldfish, but thanks for sending it.
No problem.
Look at this.
Teamwork. It's all about
Yeah.
teamwork.
I mean, no, it has all of the cards that it needed to, and it had reasonably fast clocks. I do really like Monastery Mentor right now. I still haven't picked any up just because I didn't like it previously. I don't know how much I'll like it in the future, and because while it's still in standard, it's just because it's seeing play in Legacy and Vintage. They're like $22 a piece,
Yeah.
and I don't really want to pay that. But if they drop a little bit after rotation, I'll definitely pick some up because I do like the card.
Yeah, it was down to 15 for a little while, and I almost bit, and then I was like, it can go down more. If they go down to like 10 after rotation, like I would be comfortable paying $10 for that card. I'm not thrilled about the idea of possibly paying 25 for it. Like, it doesn't slot into like any decks that I'm playing right now. Like, I don't know that I don't think it's better than Hangerback Walker and tokens. So
It might be.
It might be.
Who knows?
But just like, you play so little instant speed stuff, though. It's just like,
Right.
if I was gonna do that kind of thing, I would probably do like a Mardu version with Young Pyromancer, because it's just more efficient.
No, I also like Young Pyromancer right now.
Yep. Yeah, he's real good. All right, so talk about your stuff. Let's get back to the how we are ignoring the Eldrazi menace.
Right. How do I plan to ignore Eldrazi? That changes for Magic Online versus paper. The thing that I have been playing, so I actually did fall into the trap of trying to brew an anti-Eldrazi deck. It was Esper Control with Myth Realized as a really cool win con. The problem is Myth Realized is not where you want to be right now because you take away all of the awesome parts of your turn 1 interaction and instead play an enchantment that's not going to do anything until turn 7.
Right.
Like, I love Myth Realized. It's one of my pet cards, but it just isn't good enough right now. and I kind of just there were several mistakes that happened. I played an 8-man and played Eldrazi 3 times, and it did not go well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He
oh well.
he made his way out of my deck, even though, like I said, I did and do like the card. Um,
Right.
he just
When the format slows down to where you can afford to not interact with your opponent or progress your linear game plan turn 1, Myth does look like it'll be very good again, but we shall see. In the meantime, the other deck that I built recently at Magic Online, I've been really enjoying it, is a blue-red Delver variant that's running 4 Young Pyromancers and 4 Stormchaser Mage, alongside with a set of Gataxian Probes and 2 Gut Shots. And just, it's been really, really fun to play because you have to navigate games way different than you used to, especially because a lot of the sweepers right now that people are running are like Pyroclasm and Anger the Gods and Radiant Flames, and Stormchaser Mage does dodge Pyroclasm, and it can dodge Anger and Radiant Flames if that's your goal, and it can dodge Bolt if you have instant speed stuff like Gut Shot. Like, Gut Shot is cool, and it has actually won me games, but it's also in there to just pump Stormchaser Mage sometimes. And it's been super relevant there. The deck's been a blast to play. I actually played a really fun match against Lantern Control, which I'm not sure is a sentence a lot of people have ever said. But, you still there?
mm-hmm.
Cool. So it was just a lot of fun to navigate, and I ended up winning game 1. He had 3 Ensnaring Bridges in hand, but he knew I had Spell Pierce and Mana Leak in my hand. And so we just had to both like tiptoe around each other, and I had to stick threats and do things, and I got him down to 5 or 6, and my hand was like double Gut Shot Snapcaster Mage. And so like I got to the point where I just had to Gut Shot him end of turn paying life, and I only had 3 lands in play. Gut Shot him end of turn paying life, Snapcaster Mage, Gut Shot paying mana, untap, swing for 2 because he couldn't resolve Ensnaring Bridge through a counter magic. Get to swing for 2, hit him down 2/2, and then my draw for the turn was Vapor Snag, so I actually got to Gut Shot him again, paying life, Vapor Snag, Snapcaster Mage back to my hand, play Snapcaster Mage, and flashback Gut Shot, paying life again to just do the last 2 points of damage.
Nice.
Like, it was one of the weirdest games I've ever played, but it was really fun to navigate. And a very similar thing happened game 2, where the deck that I'm running, because it's running 4 Young Pyromancers and 4 Stormchaser Mages, I really want proactive spells, so I'm running a full set of Lava Spikes, and it seems a little weird, but I definitely stand by this, because on turn 3, if I go turn 2 Stormchaser Mage or Young Pyromancer followed up with Gataxian Probe, I get to either swing for 2 or put 3 power into play, and all I want to do on turn 3 is play another one of these proactive 2-drops, and then have a proactive 1-drop to follow it up to make sure I get value, and Lava Spike just fits that role really, really well. So it's a super, like, it's an aggro deck masquerading as a tempo deck, but it's a lot of fun to play because of that, and you can play a more proactive controlling role if you really need to.
Nice.
Like, because of that, I don't run any Remands.
Yeah.
I tried them, I didn't like them. Instead, I run a couple Mana Leaks, but mostly I just run 3 Spell Pierces, and then, like, 3 Vapor Snags as my main, quote-unquote, like, interaction besides Bolt and Electrolyze.
Mm.
But that's been a lot of fun, and I've actually had a decent amount of success with it, honestly. Like, I think I've played 4 matches with it and have gone 3-1, losing to Eldrazi, and beating, like, Lantern, a weird burn deck, and Esper Control, I think it was, but it's been a lot of fun. And the deck I want to make, which I also think is really fun, is Bant Collected Company, but in Modern, because why not? If it's good enough for Standard, it's gotta be good enough.
Well, see, you say that, and that's when I'm like, oh man, you know what I should do? Make black red dragons in modern. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Eldrazi was almost good enough for standard, and look where it got.
Sure.
But no, I think if you there are so many good Bant creatures in modern, like you just need an excuse to play the deck. Like it's not as competitive as it could be, but if you have a good excuse to play the deck, like not being able to beat Eldrazi and wanting to play something fun, I say just play it. Like so if I were to build this deck in paper, or if I had infinite money for Magic Online, it would look something like 4 Noble Hierarchs, 4 Voice of Resurgence, 4 Kitchen Finks, 4 Knight of the Reliquary, 4 Luxon Smiters, 4 Rocks Warmonk, and 2 Wiltleaf Liege.
Yeah, Rocks Warmonk.
I mean, like, it doesn't die to Bolt. It does die to Abrupt Decay, but I feel like if they're on the 1-for-1 removal plan while you're playing Collected Company and things like that, you're probably winning.
Oh yeah.
For interaction, I currently was slotted in 4 paths, 4 Collected Companies, 2 Dramokus commands, and a Dispel. And of course, you have the option to add more Dispel, add more removal of different types. And then just 23 lands, 2 Gavany Townships being amongst them. And it just seems really sweet. Like, you gain a ton of life between Kitchen Finks and Rock's Warmonk. Noble Hierarch is just such great acceleration and a good pump effect. Voice of Resurgence shuts down a bunch of decks. Knight of the Reliquary can get super out of hand super quickly without paying lots of money for Tarmogoyfs. I mean, and Wiltleaf Liege in this deck, everything except for Noble Hierarch is white and green.
Right.
So most of the time, it just represents 6+ damage.
Well, not only that, but like it's one of the few times where you can actually get like full utility out of Noble Hierarch for once, and you're not just playing it because it has Exalted. Like you can actually tap it for every color of mana that you need.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, not enough decks actually do take advantage of that, just because like Bant is really just underrepresented in Modern, and this deck, it does have like a bit of very odd disruption. Like you have a lot of good options. With Twin no longer in the format, you're not obligated to play something like Abrupt Decay, which we'll touch on in a little bit. So running things like Dispel is just better, and running Jamoka's command as interaction is just good. So it looks like a lot of fun. It's a type of deck that I really do enjoy. Unfortunately, like it's not the most affordable thing in the world,
Right.
which is another turnoff for a lot of people from Bant, because it's an unproven deck. Like this list is still like right around $500 on Magic Online, not even in paper. If you wanted to buy this deck in paper, it's just under $1,000 for a deck that isn't proven. Like Voices are, I didn't know Voices jumped up that high, but like Misty Rainforests playset's like 240, Noble Hierarchs are up to 180 thanks to Infect. Voices high, Collected Companies high. Like it's a lot of expensive cards for something that might not actually win you anything.
Right.
So I tried to put together like a more budget version that I would run on Magic Online that I'm going to build towards just to have some fun. The obvious cuts would be Birds of Paradise for Noble Hierarch to save a bit. I think I added Reflector Mage because it's sweet, even though it makes Wiltleaf Liege a little bit worse. I still managed to squeak in the Kitchen Finks, the Knight of the Reliquaries, and Luxon Spiders and Rocks Warmonk are all just super cheap. I'm trying out Immolating Glare as well.
It's good.
Which is cool. Yeah, I want to try it. Like, it's definitely something, because Jamoka's Command were surprisingly expensive on Magic Online. Like, more than I wanted to pay for a removal spell that's okay in the deck.
Right.
And Collected Companies are super expensive on Magic Online.
Yeah, I know. I bought them when they were like $3, and then I sold them for like 20. It was ridiculous.
At least better, budget-wise, on Magic Online, this version comes out to like $244.
Yeah, that's something.
If you have the cons fetches, it just
Yeah.
drops by like $70, so that's
Well,
nice.
that's one thing I think a good takeaway from this whole like everything that used to be good is terrible now sort of situation that we're in is if you have spent your time investing in staples, then if something happens, like if you had all the stuff for Splinter Twin and then Splinter Twin gets banned, all the other cards that you have are still good. So like if I'm playing whatever junk and Dark Confidant gets banned for some reason, like all the other cards that I have are still good. Like Tarmogoyf's not going to become bad until everybody's running main deck Graveyard Hate. Um, there's just you will be able to reconfigure staples into some other deck. Like that is why they are staples.
And another good thing right now, like just because Modern's in such a weird place and so many are evacuating the format, a lot of staples are just pretty much at rock bottom or just was recently. Like Snapcaster Mages on Magic Online, I picked them up for like $13 a piece a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that is
Like,
insane.
right. I mean, it's what I want to pay for Snapcaster Mages.
Sure.
Like, I don't want them to be paper expensive, but a lot of these cards are in that position as well, both in paper and on Magic Online. Like, Snapcaster Mage started going up again with the resurgence of like the blue-white list that did pretty well
Right.
and whatnot. But I mean, Serum Visions I think is down again, and a lot of these things. So I would almost use this as a blessing in disguise and pick up some of these staples like we were just talking
Yeah.
about.
Speaking of which, the Blessed versus Cursed dual deck actually has a couple of notable reprints. Geisa Saint Traft is one of the face cards. It's neat art too. Like I almost wish it wasn't foil, because I really do like the art. I wonder if he's gonna be in the set, like in a non-foil version.
I kind of doubt it.
Yeah.
Normally their habit is one card is new, one card is old. Like all the dual decks do a pretty good slash bad job of teasing the MTG community
Right.
of what's actually going to come. I do like the art in this promo premium foil, whatever they call it, better than the last promo.
Oh yeah,
Geist
it's like a
had.
World Magic Cup qualifier, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he just can't seem to catch a break. But if you were looking for them, they've started to go down. They're down to about $13. I think they can go lower, and that makes me happy because I would like a set. I didn't want to pay $25 each for them a while ago, and I didn't even want to pay $15 a piece for them even more recently. So if they can get to about like $8, I will feel good about grabbing a set. Champion of the Parish is also in there. He wasn't particularly expensive, but it's neat to have him again. Gravecrawler, I think, is actually one of the bigger ones. We haven't seen him for quite a while, and he was starting to creep up on $10.
Yeah.
So having him around again is going to be very very good for people who don't like Bloodsoaked Champion.
Right. Especially because this is once again like a lot of decks want both creatures
Yeah.
to be
Oh, yeah.
honest, but because this is a product that like is supposed to MSRP for $20 and stores normally can't sell all their copies, like you can pretty much go on Amazon or eBay and buy any dual deck in the last 2-3 years for like $17. and I feel like this one's not going to be any different. So when you take Gravecrawler, which used to be $10, and Geist, which used to be 25, and then the new cards, which are also probably going to be a few dollars, like the prices just have to keep dropping,
Yeah.
so that the MSRP makes
Yeah.
sense.
So the one thing that they did add, the cards that are in there have the Delirium mechanic. So Delirium is essentially the Tarmogoyf ability that's just been keyworded.
Sort of, yeah. It's a Tarmogoyf on or off switch.
Right. So it's the kind of thing that would allow for a standard legal sort of like Tarmogoyf functional reprint almost. Um, so for people that are looking for something like that, I wouldn't be surprised to see, one in a green star one, something with Delirium.
We talked about this before the show. I think the one that makes the most sense is still just one in a green, 1/2, or 0/1, whatever they see fits. And then Delirium, it gets to become a 4/5.
Right.
Whether it's a 1/2 that gets +3/+3, or a 0/1 that gets +4/+4, a 2-drop that will become a 4/5 when you have Delirium turned on with 4 or more card types in your graveyard. That just, honestly, it doesn't even seem good enough for standard. Like, it's probably not good enough. It's just a big beater.
Right.
In like a very value-centric standard. So I can definitely see that happening. If they'll do it or not, I don't know. If they do it, does it make an impact on Modern? I think so, like, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it also, like, it gets around the tribal card type issue that they sort of ended up having with potential Tarmogoyf reprints because the tribal card type isn't supported anymore. Printing it on a card in a standard legal set would be confusing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, they would never do that, but having something like this available, I think is a step in the right direction, because it really does allow for stuff to be more cross format playable.
Right.
So good job, Wizards.
Yeah, well, potentially.
Oh, yeah,
Let's see if they actually do it. I hope so. I mean, good job, Wizards, for Eerie Interlude,
yeah,
which I'm excited for. I mean, I will probably find a way to jam this in Standard. In Modern, I don't know if I plan on making Ghost Way, but this is just strictly better Ghost Way. It is also an instant for 2 and a white. Exile any number of target creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So the good news is, with Ghost Way, I think it makes you exile all creatures you control.
I believe that is correct.
And the problem with that is, if you have tokens, the tokens are just, exile each creature you control, return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So it's mostly the same text, except Ghost Away forces you to kill your own tokens, whereas Eerie Interlude does not, and there might be corner case scenarios where you want to block a bunch of creatures, but some are chumps and you want to save your creatures, whereas another one will just trade profitably for you, and you don't want to take it out of the battlefield. You want it to be there for damage. So just strictly better Ghost Way. This is awesome. Ghost Way was pretty expensive too, and now because it's going to be in the set at Rare, and it's going to be in the dual deck, I expect it to stay fairly cheap.
Yeah. Yep. I like it. I like it a lot. Yep. So keep an eye out for that dual deck. Q&A. We had we were actually originally going to record this yesterday, but I have bronchitis and life is full of shenanigans. So Riley Jones asked, what decks are good against Eldrazi? Literally none. Blue
Yeah, that was also our sarcastic reply on Twitter.
like Blue Red Eldrazi is the best deck against Eldrazi, and that is just the way things are. So basically, the entire rest of the episode is sort of trying to answer that question. So um, if you're in a position to join them and you want to top 8 some tournaments, go ahead and join them.
The other half of that comment too, which I don't think I stressed enough in the first half of the episode, and I think it's really important, is for most people, just like the twin banning, like I said, this doesn't affect most people. Like, I know, for instance, at my shop's weeklies, or at F&M if I wanted to go to that, there's not going to be some guy trying to spike a free or a $10 event with Eldrazi.
Right.
Like, the value isn't there. The only people that have to worry about this Eldrazi problem are people going to large tournaments trying to cash.
Yep.
If you are not one of those people, just play whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, seems good.
Yeah. Play with aggro in mind. That's my real advice. Ignore Eldrazi, like we said in this episode, and be good against aggro decks.
Yeah, don't lose to Infect.
Right.
Let's see, what else? Brian Dawes, have you brewed any Green-White X, Smiter, Liege, Baloth decks with Path/Dismember? How have they performed? I did make like a Green-White aggro-y kind of deck. I don't know that it is good enough. And I didn't really didn't tune it. It just didn't do the business.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of people are trying to brew and turn, was it Reality Smashers discardability into a good thing for them,
Right?
And I think that's such a weak line that it's not worth it. Like, the good thing about it is you're brewing with Eldrazi in mind without necessarily making your deck worse against the rest of the format. Because you look, I talked about earlier, like the Bant Coco, that's basically the same shell with blue, but it doesn't run the main deck Baloth.
Yeah. The problem with trying to do that is, like, let's say you do end up in that situation where your opponent goes Reality Smasher and you go Path, discard your Loxodon Smiter. Like, Loxodon Smiter is not good enough. He's
right.
Just a 4/4. So, the next turn when they followed up with another Reality Smasher, you're just going to end up throwing that Loxodon Smiter away.
Right.
So, it even, like, it trades with Wiltleaf Liege. Like, it's too much. So I don't think it's the answer.
I certainly wouldn't brew a deck around that interaction, but if you're looking to play a green-white creature deck, which is borderline already a thing in Modern, it's certainly not a bad idea to make sure you just have enough. Like, because what is it asking of you? Like, I wouldn't main deck the Baloths.
No.
Is really my answer. But if you're playing a green-white creature deck, just being aware of that interaction seems like enough. I wouldn't go out of my way to make it happen, but keeping it in the back of your mind as a line that you can take is definitely very important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically where I would put it.
Let's see. Samuel and Dustin from Facebook both posted Mardu lists and asked for options. I touched on it briefly up top, but it's Mardu previously was Mardu good stuff was not good enough. stuff. Um, Now it probably is, and we haven't seen anybody go for it because it is just completely overshadowed by Eldrazi, because it is almost definitely not good enough um, right now. There was a top eight Mardu midrange that was at one of the regionals.
Yeah, these are the two lists that they posted on our Facebook page.
Okay.
One piloted by Kelly Thompson at top 8 at a regionals. This list was super weird. I mean, it ran a Johnny Vengeance and Sorin Solemn Visitor, which are cool, but it also had Simeon Spirit Guide to like hasten out threats and blood moons, and there was a lot going on. It was like Lingering Souls and Bitter Blossoms as the main threats, along with a couple swords and Batter Skulls. So it had good things. It had the bolts, helixes, and terminates alongside a slaughter pack to take on early aggression between the lightning helixes and a Johnny Vengeance. You're able to make sure you stay at a stable life total. I think, as you were starting to touch on, Mardu good stuff in the past hasn't quite been good enough because of Twin.
Right.
4 Path to Exiles are not enough against Twin, whereas Jund and Abzan had Path and Abrupt Decay, or Abrupt Decay and Terminate, and all of these other options that Mardu just didn't have. And so now that Twin is gone and Abrupt Decay isn't such a necessity, Mardu looks a lot more attractive, and there are a lot of really good Mardu cards. Right now, both of these lists, the other one was a Mardu list that included the Kiki Jiki Restoration Angel combo, as well as Goblin Dark Dwellers, which is a card that I love, and I'm currently jamming as hard as I can in Standard. It's sweet. I'm not in love with either of these lists, but I feel like people are gonna put the work in
Right.
and figure out a good Mardu list, and there is definitely one now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both like almost there.
Right.
Yeah, I like the Kelly Thompson list better personally. Um, it uses Terminate, Slaughter Pact, and then Bolt Helix instead of Path for removal. Um, but like 3 main deck Painful Truce. The other one, the Dark Dwellers one, has like a kind of a weird card draw suite. It's 3 Night's Whisper and 1 Read the Bones. Um,
Well, you get to cast them off of Dark Dwellers. Like that's the hard part.
right.
You can't really run Painful Truths alongside Goblin Dark Dwellers, which is tough. I'm like that's the deck I'm currently playing in Standard, and I have to have a 2-1 split between Read the Bones and Painful Truths just because of Goblin Dark Dwellers.
Huh. All right. Well, the more you know.
Yeah, but I like everything else. I like, because this is the thing, Pia and Kieran Nalaar, awesome card, awesome mid-range card, awesome threat, and the fact that you get to run it alongside Tassigers, Gurmag Anglers, in the Dark Dwellers version, which, this must be a user, might be their actual deck. That's running the combo is also just like Restoration Angel just as a threat is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't even need to run the Kiki Jiki. Like, you might as well if you're only running 1 copy, but Restoration Angel just as a threat is very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's pretty solid. Apparently, a number of people have asked where to find our lists. We promise to get better about putting them on our TappedOut page. It is tappedout.net/users/turn1thoughtseize all spelled out.
Yeah. We should which is unfortunate now that we're making this promise, because we probably have a few lists we should be posting there from this episode. I'll post the Jeskai list that I ran at the regionals. I'm sure you can get your Black-White Planeswalker Smallpox from regionals up there.
Now I'm going to put it up there.
Oh, okay. Then which... Oh, maybe it was the old Smallpox without Planeswalkers and Oath of Gideon that was missing. Because we haven't actually talked about the Planeswalker version yet on the podcast.
Yeah, not really.
So...
I did want... Oh, that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Hall the Bandit Lord fits into a lot of decks, so like a kind of an oddball card, but man, pay 3 life, add 1 mana to your pool. If it's spent to cast a creature spell, creature has haste.
Oh man, you can give Skittles haste.
Yeah, you can. I was gonna say.
We figured it out.
Format solved. So that is that. Let me see if I can put the tapped out thing in our little profile dealio. Oh.
Profile on what?
On Twitter. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, we can.
Boom.
We can put it on Twitter, so follow us on Twitter. You can, or just visit us on Twitter. You can find it there. We should put it on... I think it might actually already be on Facebook. And we can add it to our website if you ever go there.
Yeah. Boom. Done. It has been added to our Twitter profile. Boosh.
Nice.
All right. So, see, this is the glory of having it done with both of us in front of a computer, because I can just be boosh.
You can do that. Like, you can just bring a computer with you normally.
I guess.
Yeah. Also, just as a last couple finishing up business things, if there is any difference in audio quality than usual, we are just at remote locations.
Yes, we're
both of us on Skype.
We're not in the same room currently.
Which is odd. How do people do this?
I don't know. I mean, it's nice because I can be in my underwear, which would be strange if we were in the same room. But you know, I mean, I am sick. Like I'm like puffing down albuterol like it's going out of style, just so I can breathe. But
it's not very fun.
No, it's terrible. So stay home when you're sick. Don't go to work sick, because then you get other people sick, and then they have to miss work, and that is why our productivity as a country is in the toilet, because people will not stay home when they're sick.
Yes, that is a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. So that, I believe, is that.
Kind of. I just wanted to touch on one. Like, we already mentioned the dual decks. Just going to mention we will be keeping an eye on Eternal Masters, because there will certainly be modern cards in there. I believe they should be putting Liliana of the Veil and Snapcaster Mage in there.
That would make sense.
To help sell packs. So we'll keep an eye on that. That's all we have to say about that.
Yes, sir. So, as always, if you would like to get a hold of us, you can find us on Twitter at @1Thoughtseize. You can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/turn1thoughtseize. You can go to our website, turn1thoughtseize, all spelled out.com. If you are willing and able, you can click on the old donate button right up on the top and give us a tip, help us get some merch made, help us get some streaming equipment set up and all that crazy stuff. And what did I forget? Facebook, website, Twitter. Oh, TappedOut. It's tappedOut.net/users/turn1thoughtseize, all spelled out. It is also in our Twitter profile, so you can check it there. You can also email us. It's thoughtseizeu@gmail.com. But if you have anything that you'd like to get directly to both of us at the same time, Twitter is the best place. So there you go. Peace out.